Who are you and what is your role?
I am Morgan Bowler-Brown. I am the Plaid Cymru Casnewydd Youth Officer. I'm also the candidate for Tredegar Park, which is just by Dyffryn and Tredegar House.
What does that involve and what do you need to do for that role?
So as part of my role as youth officer, I'm also the chair of Plaid Ifanc Casnewydd, which is the youth movement of Plaid Cymru, but in Newport. And I lead a group of about 10 to 15 people, and we get together every month and have a catch up, and we do things like we recently went to Swansea as part of the local conference, the Plaid Ifanc conference, and attended there. Just generally encouraging young people to get more involved in politics.
You mentioned earlier that you haven't always been in politics. Why now?
Well, it's not really true, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I've been in politics, involved in one way or another since I was 13. I have a day job. This isn't my day job. My day job is I'm a manager at a production facility in Pencode where we make high-profile TV cameras, and and I manage the guys and girls down there that actually build the products. But that's my day job. My hobby. Most people like watching football or rugby or making things. I like politics. I like talking. I have a big belief that politics is just a difference of opinion, and there's always going to be differences of opinions. Politics is how we talk about those differences and come to an agreement. And I'm a big believer that young people should be more involved in politics, because young people have opinions. They may not always be sort of in line with what we'd like people to think. They may sometimes be quite radically different, but the biggest frustration for young people is feeling that they're not being listened to. And if you approach a young person and said, "Tell me what you think," they'd probably surprise you. However, if you go to them and say, "Your opinion doesn't matter, I don't even want to listen to you," then all you're going to do is make them upset and angry, and there's nothing worse than an angry young person, because they're the ones that are going to make big changes if you let them. If you don't let them, they're going to turn into adults that feel like they're not listened to, and then what happens?
Why do you feel the young people don't feel like they're listened to?
I've been one. I'm 25. I still consider myself to be a young person, if I'm honest. But like I said, going back to when I was 13, I started off in Plaid Cymru sort of by accident. I was part of a mock election around the 2005 general election. So it was, how do I get involved in politics if I don't know anything about it? But a lot of people's attitudes to politics is, I don't care, I'm not interested. Well, really, that's just a defence mechanism. It's because I don't really understand. You don't understand, that's fine. You can learn, but a lot of people's defence mechanism is just to push away and say, no, I'm not interested. Whereas for me, it was, I knew a little bit about Plaid Cymru back then. I knew they were wholeheartedly against the war in Iraq. That was the big topic for everyone at that point. Were you for or against? I felt like being against was the right thing to do. I didn't know much about Plaid Cymru other than they were wholeheartedly against the war in Iraq, and for more powers in the Welsh Assembly and more powers towards Wales. And those two things alone were enough for me to say I'd like to vote for Plaid Cymru in this mock election that we're having. Turns out no one in my school wanted to stand for Plaid Cymru, so there was no option. I'm a big believer that if there should always be a choice as well. You should always have the option to vote for someone or something that your opinion does matter. If there's no one to vote for that represents you and your opinions, then you don't have that option. So me being me, and it goes back even further in my life. My mother was an independent councillor when I was younger, because it was the party that was in the position and no one was standing against them. She volunteered just on the basis of giving other people the choice of this or something else, and that stuck with me. So because of that, I represented Plaid Cymru. There was a lot of discussion around how that was going to happen, because there was age restrictions and things, but I was supported quite well by my Welsh teacher at the time. Didn't win, got 18 votes, not a lot in the grand scheme of things of a school of over 1,000 children. But that was the start for me. I went from there, and I've been involved with Plaid Cymru in one way or another since then. So because of that, I believe having a voice, having that chance to say this is what I think and not be shunned or ignored, because it is a valuable thing. It goes back to, we were talking earlier on about public speaking, and it's always been a bit of a challenge for me. However, that's changed since I've started doing more, and I've realised the reason why people don't like public speaking and don't like talking about their opinions is because as a child you get told, no, the adults are talking, wait your turn. And even then it's, well, by the time it's your turn, the conversation's over and it's moved on to something else, and your opinion might not be as relevant at that point. You know, when you're an adult and you start talking publicly, you have the attention of the whole room. The fear is that you're still going to be treated like you were when you were a child and not listened to effectively, you know. When you overcome that and you start speaking to people and you start listening, you know, start realizing people are listening to you, that's when suddenly you become a lot more confident in telling people your opinions. And it goes back to, that's all politics is, it's a difference of opinion.
So, I mean, you talked about how people, or at least younger people at least, have quite extreme views, not extremist, but they'll have ideas, you know, like communism or anarchism, you know, the kind of more kind of rebelling completely against the system. I mean, you know, look at colleges nowadays, one of the most bought books is Marxism. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? How would you...
To a young person, having said, feeling still quite very much like a young person, and you guys are younger than me, so it's probably even more... Life is very simple. It's yes or no. You know, for a lot of things, there's obvious answers. It seems like there's such simple answers to all life's problems. You've just got to be able to have the guts to say, that's the answer, let's do it. And as you get older, you realise that it's not always as binary as yes or no. You know, look at the referendum we've had recently. That wasn't a yes or no answer, but that's the only answers that were offered. You know, life isn't as simple as yes or no. But when you're younger, you don't see always the bigger picture. And that's why I think you have the opinions most of the time of young people can be quite extreme, because it's either one way or the other. It's either you're being listened to or you're not. It's either you agree or you disagree. It's either you're right or you're wrong. You put your hand up and you take your chance. But when you're told in school your answer is either right or wrong, that's what you're told for the entirety of your school life. You're either right or you're wrong. If that's the only thing you've ever learned, when you comes to start to the point where you're going to college and you start having opinions for yourself, if the only experience you know is you're either right or you're wrong, well, my opinion is my opinion and I think I'm completely right. There's no one to tell you, well, yeah, you are in parts, but maybe this is a reason why you could reevaluate what your opinion is. Because at the end of the day, opinions are opinions. They're unique to you as a person.
I think it's kind of where university have been letting down a lot of students. One thing I liked about college, kind of a bit more on my own side here, but one thing I liked about college was actually more of the ethos system they had, whereas we had this whole enterprise thing, and it was about discrimination, one of the things we did. And it was that, you know, if you believe, you know, this is discrimination or isn't discrimination, doesn't matter. You know, as long as you just tick a box, you pass, you get through it. Whereas in university nowadays, they seem to be protecting certain ideas. If you don't form with certain ideas, then you're kind of put down or you can be ostracized by a class for it. And there is kind of that worrying, I suppose, lack of diversity of thought nowadays in universities. I don't know what you think about that.
So I'm a rare thing. A lot of people of my generation, it was the automatic choice to go to university. I didn't go. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I'm 25. I had my daughter quite young in the grand scheme of things. That forced me, my life path. I didn't go to university because I had to get a job. I went to college. I've studied at college, but I left and went into the world of work. And my path is different to other people, so I can't really speak about actually being there. But I can speak from an outsider's perspective of. There's a lot of people that sort of fetishize having a degree and everything that comes with that, and then because of how that side is looked at, how people look at, oh, he's got a degree or she's got a degree, it then forms back to the protecting of what university means. And university for a lot of people is this very liberal attitude to everyone, and everyone's existence is accepted, and you know that is okay, and you're allowed to have your opinions and thoughts as long as they don't conflict with other people's thoughts. And that's the problem then, it perpetuates it. My big belief is with some political opinions, the only way you're going to win them over is by confronting them. I'm a big supporter of actually challenging someone's opinion. If you think they're wrong, as long as you can support it, you can have an opinion that completely matters. And then you can challenge someone else's opinion, but you've got to be able to argue a point with it.
Not many people know what Plaid Cymru stand for, so what are their policies?
So in Wales, we're standing on a main platform of we are the local party. So every other party in Wales, as a national party, their headquarters isn't based in Wales. Their party policies are formed in England and spread out across the UK. Plaid Cymru is the only political party in Wales that's standing on a ticket of we are the local party. And in Wales, we're quite different, that we have a lot of independence and things like that. It's unusual for the rest of the UK, to have so many independents. At a local level, it's even more skewed, that we do seem to have more independence because it's local people, local issues. Leanne, the party leader, said it quite recently, that it's, at a local level, it's about dog mess than Brexit. People who try and inject issues about Brexit and the wider UK into local government will get ignored, and will get sort of reminded that this is not the point of these elections. These are local people, local issues, local policies. And for me, Plaid Cymru is, especially at this local level, it's about making Wales better as a whole, but starting from the ground up and starting at local government to make those changes and make them matter. So for Plaid Cymru as a local party, we've got sort of main campaign issues. So the main one is we want to make sure Newport gets its fair share of the city deal. So making sure the investments to improve local transport and create new jobs locally that actually come here. You can see the city deal and the regional development across Wales is happening right now. We're seeing big investment in Swansea. We're seeing the new transport hubs and their sort of admin offices being placed around the Rhondda and Pontypridd and that sort of area. And we want more of it to come to Newport and come to invest in this city, because we would like our fair share. And at the end of the day, it's not asking for more than we want, it's just about being fair. Secondly, the business rate scandal. So there's a lot of support needed for local traders, and we want to further revive Newport as a shopping destination. So we've got the Kingsway and we've got Friars Walk. They are fantastic, but they are all big shops. What about local traders? There's one particular shop that I used to go to in Newport that's closed now. They had two shops, one in here and one in Blackwood, but they've shut the one in Newport because it wasn't profitable. It wasn't good enough for them to have the two shops open. So they've moved away from Newport as a city centre and they've moved it back up to Blackwood. Well, that's fine. I can go up to Blackwood if I want, but then if I'm going to go up there for one shop, I may as well do all my shopping there. And it's great for small towns, but we would still like to improve all of Wales.
It's interesting how Risca has kind of become more of a town than what Newport is, or at least during the recession it was gaining a lot more of an economic growth than Newport, where Newport seemed to be slowly slipping down.
It's a regional thing. So in some parts of the Rhondda and other parts of Wales, you see there's some high streets that are sort of doing that upward trend, and there's some that are really declining. And it's the attitude of the main governments are, okay, we'll invest in the town, we'll make it pedestrianised, or we'll make it so more people feel like they can go there. Well, that's fine, but unless you have shops to attract people, and you make it worthwhile for small business owners to reopen their shops or open new shops there, it's not going. It doesn't matter how nice the street is to walk down if the shops are all shut, or if the shops are all charity shops and betting shops and money lenders. Then they're not really going to attract people to go and do shopping.
So you work with youths, right? Or that's the kind of area you're going to. So, sorry, so I understand it.
So my personal political ambition is to encourage a lot more young people to get involved in politics, whether that's with Plaid Cymru in general or other parties. My big drive is to get more people just talking about politics.
Is that focused locally or in Wales or?
So Plaid Ifanc, the party's youth branch, does a lot of work with IFE, which is the European Free Alliance Youth Movement. So that represents small nations or young independent nations or currently unrecognised nation states all across Europe. So we've got places like Asturias, which is in northern Spain, Catalonia, which is part of Spain, the Basque Country, and all across Europe. And because Wales considered itself to be a small independent nation in the grand scheme of things, Plaid considers Wales to be an independent nation in the grand scheme of things. We interact with other small nations in our same political sphere. So we form an alliance in the European Union, for example. All these small local European Parliament members all collaborate together and work together under the EFA. And the young people that I've met through EFA are really encouraging and really so what we do there is try and get everyone across Europe to talk together and then take those ideas back to our local areas and encourage young people. So while yes, it's on a much bigger scale as well, we also want to encourage young people. So I'm trying to approach local schools at the moment to talk about an introduction to politics 101. If I could explain politics to a young person that says, I'm not interested, I don't care. Well, as I said earlier, I'm not interested, I don't care. It's a defence mechanism to I don't really understand. No one's actually sat down and said what politics is. And as I said already, politics is nothing but a difference of opinion. Everyone has differences of opinions, and the first step is encouraging people to think that their opinion is valid. So that's what I'm trying to do, really, is trying to ignite the conversation a bit more and get more people to actually talk about politics.
Don't you think that perhaps, because with the University of South Wales, there aren't as many students going to that university. Even when I've tried to apply for it myself, there wasn't many options for it. And I know a lot of people who even go to St Julian's who will literally just go over to Cardiff and they'll move into Cardiff. And I think one of the main issues that Newport has is that we have a lack of retention of students. So what kind of ideas would you have to be keeping students in the University of Newport? Because a lot of students go to university, they want to get political, they want to kind of get into that sphere.
You said yourself, a lot of people are choosing to either not go to university at all, or if they are going to go to university, they'll go to university further away. My own cousin is going to university in Birmingham. You know, the difference is then, though, you will get political, you will get a political opinion. However, it will be formed from that opinion, or that political opinion that is a UK opinion. So you'll only ever really then find the Labours, the Lib Dems, the Conservatives, maybe even the UKIPs on university campuses. Unless you go to university in Wales, you're not going to get the Plaid Cymru opinion. Or if you go to university in Scotland, you may get the SNP opinion. But you won't get what matters to Wales as an opinion unless you go to university in Wales. Part of the experience of going to university is going away. So, you know, I'd encourage a lot more people to stay in university, and I'd look at improving the amount of bursaries and things, and the financial sort of impact of staying in Wales should be beneficial for people. Because I've got friends who have come to Wales to university from places like London, but they've just had to stay in Wales because of their formative years are that. For me, my target audience would be 16 to 18 year olds before you get to university, to sort of encourage that conversation about politics first. And while my conversations I've been having have been very neutral and non-partisan, not shouting about Plaid Cymru while I'm doing it, it is more about starting the conversation off so they want to learn more, and if they want to learn more about Plaid Cymru, I'll talk about that. Up until now, it's been very much what is politics, what actually is, what are the techniques used that people will use when talking to people about politics to sort of, I don't want to say nurture their opinion because that's too soft, I would say win them round, you know.
Okay.
The biggest problem I think I see is at university, if you haven't already formed an opinion, if you're not in Wales, you're not going to get an opinion that's valid when you come back to Wales, or not equal. There's so many things in the UK that are devolved. So if you went to university in England, the opinion might be completely different.
So do you not feel that the retention is as important? So, for example, students who actually go out to Cardiff and across England, do you not feel that it's important to keep students within Newport and then have more homegrown opinion and actually have them more politically motivated for what happens locally?
It's an interesting point. You know, I don't think that it's not important, but I think like I said earlier, the sort of the fetishization of a degree is significantly less important now than it was, say, 15, 20 years ago. I think that personally there should be a lot more focus on apprenticeships and vocational qualifications rather than just a degree that says I know English. You know, that what does that actually mean at the end of the day? It means you can study for 3 to 5 years and really know a particular subject, but it doesn't say anything about you as a person and your work ethic and your ability and your skills. You still then have to go into work and sort of effectively press restart and learn that trade or learn that skill, unless you're going to like I use my sister as an example. So she's a social worker. She did a degree in social working. That is absolutely relevant to the career she wanted to pursue. But then there are people that do generic degrees and they don't necessarily have the weight behind them that a degree should. And all that's going to happen is you're going to get more students doing masters and furthering education to try and be that one step ahead. But because lots more people are coming through, as university being the automatic choice, the generic option for where do you go after college or sixth form? Well, I'm going to university now. Well, no, there should be other options. There should be a lot more vocational qualifications and apprenticeships and training for people. And those are the sorts of things that would be kept locally, and you would keep those young people local then, you know?
So would you be open to working with businesses to try and get more people, younger people, into something similar to what a business college kind of style thing, or apprenticeships, internships?
Absolutely, especially since the company I currently work for is a gold standard in investment in people. So they've been recognised by outside bodies for investing in people. They have so many apprenticeships going at the moment. You know, I've only worked for this company now for about 4 or 5 months, but I can see the investment they're giving people. I work with a lot of apprenticeships, a lot of university graduates, you know, and there's graduate schemes there as well. So it's not just about looking at people who university isn't for them. It's about looking at the different levels and different skills people have, and different types of people work in different ways. We all know this. You know, how do you interact with someone who school was never for them, but they still feel they want to progress and want to do better? I went to college. I didn't like school very much as a person, but I preferred college because I felt I was being treated more like an adult in college. You know, that was my big change. I went from being treated like a child whose opinions didn't matter to being told you can either turn up and learn and listen, or you can leave. We're not going to stop you. We're not going to make you stay. And that to me was all I needed to actually sort of put my head down and start working. You know, it goes back to my earlier points of young people have opinions and those opinions matter, but quite often I felt like my opinion wasn't valid because people didn't even listen to me. And I think if my opinion was listened to, maybe I wouldn't be as pro-youth involvement in discussions and listening to young people as I would be now. I think it takes a young person who's grown up to be feeling like this to sort of stand up and say, no, that's not okay. We should be listening to young people more.
So is that something you want to do? If you're elected, do you want to go into schools, send people into schools and encourage young people into politics?
I'm planning on doing it whether I win or not. You know, it's something I feel that passionately about. But I'd like to be able to go in as the local representative of the council and to go into other schools and say, I am a councillor, I have been elected because people have trusted in me and listened to my opinions, said that opinion is actually good, you know. And for me personally, it should be done whether I win or lose. It's a sort of a promise I've made, but it's a promise I'll keep regardless.
What else do you want to do if you're elected or not?
So I said this, I can't remember if we were recording or not earlier on, but there's a very sort of middle of the road, straight down the middle of my ward in Tredegar Park. On one side of the street you've got some lovely new houses that haven't got a massive amount of issue. There's a little bit of speeding, some dog mess, that's sort of it. That's about as bad as the problems get. However, the other side of the street, they've got significant issues with flooding, there's antisocial behaviour, there's some low-level drug use, there's a lack of a police presence in the area. You know, there's a big problem with Newport City Homes at the moment. The residents are unhappy with how they feel they're being treated regarding boilers and the fact that they're all on the same shared heating scheme. They feel like they've been pressured into making choices, and the current councillor who didn't stand up for them, or they feel he wasn't standing up for them. You know, I've gone around and I've talked to the residents of both sides. So I live on one side of the street. I live on the side of the street that has, you know, the dog mess and speeding. That's about as far as it goes. And it's great for me, you know, I like living where I live because I feel it's really nice. But then I have friends that live on the other side of the street, and it's ridiculous that we can live so close to each other, but have such fundamental differences in issues that matter to us. You know, but I'm saying that those issues matter to me because we all live in Newport. We should all care about each other, and we should all do what's right for the people that live in our areas. We should look after each other. When I was canvassing the other day, I went to meet one of the local residents on the other side of the street. She's in her late 80s. She's lived there in that house as long as it's been built, you know, and she said that certain issues that affect her that have been there since they've moved in, like the flooding has always been an issue. There's a primary school that people have to walk to through the middle of the housing, through the green area space in the middle, but there's the path that goes there. If it's a littlest bit of rain, it floods over. You know, there's families there that have got grandkids now that still walk the same route to school, and they've all three of them have worn wellies to go to school because it's always been that way. You know, but the same woman says that her next door neighbour will go and do her shopping for her if she needs it, and vice versa. They'll help each other out. You know, that's the community spirit that I like, but it feels like this community spirit is being drained because they feel like they're not being listened to again.
I've got some questions here from social media. Someone asks, why is the leader of Plaid Cymru going into schools? Is it so she can push for 16-year-olds to vote?
So we talked about this earlier. I don't think it's just her. I think lots of people are feeling now it's been too long that we haven't gone in and spoke to young people about politics. Leanne does a lot of great work with lots of schools all over Wales. Personally, I'd love to go with her a couple of times and listen to her speak, because she's an inspirational speaker as it is, but I bet when she's engaged with young people, I bet she's even more enthusiastic, and she really believes that the young people are the future of Wales in the same way that I do. The big thing about the votes for 16-year-olds, I'm hoping to go into a local school soon and talk about the Chartists and how the history of Newport is very pro giving people a voice and listening to their opinions. We've done it already where everyone has a vote, or every man has a vote. We've done it to every woman has a vote. We've done it to everyone over the age of 18 has a vote. The next logical step is approaching younger people, 16 to 18-year-olds, and say, this is your opinion. If you have an opinion, fantastic. If you would like to voice your opinion, you can have the choice of voting. In the same way that we see voter apathy, people not bothering to vote now as adults, you know, if we just opened the net a bit more and said, this group of people can all vote from 16 to infinity, we would see an increase in the number of people voting. And I think because we said earlier that suddenly we're going to young people and saying, oh, by the way, actually your opinion does matter. You have a choice to vote. I think that would do a lot for young people's confidence.
Do you not feel that perhaps people who are aged 16 to, well, it would be 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds up to the 18-year-olds can vote. Do you not feel that perhaps they would be quite naive, not exposed enough to the world, not have enough experience to actually make certain decisions on important votes?
I don't think that's a barrier to saying they shouldn't, because at 13 I was completely aware of what I could have voted at 13 and been very confident in what I was voting for. Not everyone was like me, not everyone was as angry as I was to go out and learn about it, but that doesn't mean those people who don't know and don't understand and are naive, as you put it, should stop the people who aren't, you know. But then again, if those people are, and 16, 17 and are naive and shouldn't be allowed to vote, whose fault is that? It's not their fault. It's our fault for not talking to them. It's our fault for not sitting them down and talking about politics. If you wanted to start off by talking about politics to someone who had no interaction at all, the easiest way would to say it starts off, politics is nothing but a difference of opinions. Everyone's got opinions, and everyone's opinions will not always match up. You could start off by saying, what's your favourite colour? And I guarantee you two will probably have a different favourite colour, because that's as basic as it is. People's differences of opinions are as unique to them as individuals as a favourite colour. But then I could try and convince you both that, well, mine is green, yours might be blue, yours might be red, that green is the better colour, and we could argue and we could talk about it, and I could use all sorts of techniques to try and convince you why I'm right and you're wrong. And that's all politics is. It's trying to change your opinion to match my opinion. And I've got lots of content that I'm hoping to take in to speak to young people, and that's what I'm looking at the beginning, is as simple as, what's your favourite colour? And I'm trying to do a lot of non-partisan talking about what techniques particularly are used to try and change your opinion. Because if you're wise to those techniques of anything from outright spreading lies and not telling you the truth to make you change your opinion, to emotive techniques, you'll see far-right groups sharing very emotive content that every person on the street would agree to. 95% of what far-right groups would say is absolutely normal and everyone would agree with. The 5% they say that's absolutely abhorrent, you wouldn't agree with, but in your mind you're going, well, I agree with most of what they say. And those are the sorts of techniques that people, especially on that end of the spectrum, will use to try and get you over to their way of thinking.
Well, it's the same as far left groups. I mean, you have the Women's Equality Party, for example, that use a lot of sophistry. For example, the gender gap, which has actually been disproven many times, they'll use things like that as rhetoric. So it kind of is on both sides, wouldn't you agree?
Extremists on both sides do use the same techniques, and that's my point I'm getting across. It's not just right-wing people will say this and they'll try and tell you. No, all political parties will use similar techniques to try and change your opinion, but by exposing them, you can hopefully see through it and try and get a bit more transparency in politics. This is not a local politics issue. This is a national. This is a worldwide political issue. Everyone is told things that sometimes are not true, sometimes are half true. If you fact check things, you can see the proportion is normally sort of 1/3 truth, 2/3 half, or 1/3 half truth, and 1/3 out and out lies. And that's just the way politics is, and it's not okay. It doesn't make it okay, but it does mean if we can educate people and start off by a much younger age to say, this is what techniques are used, shall we say, to try and change your opinion. My goal is, like I say, I want to spend an hour with a large group of, say, 16, 17-year-olds and start talking about their favourite colour and try and say, this is where we were at the beginning. By the midpoint, this is where you were. And by the end point, this is where and how do you think we got from here to there? You know, and how do you think that would be used to people who want to talk about things that are a bit more important than your opinion on what your favourite colour is? You know, things like leaving the European Union. Those are quite important discussions, and it seems like a lot of people were given a binary choice of yes or no when it wasn't really that simple. And when you're only given those two as an option, it's difficult. You know, it's difficult to make a decision that you're happy with.
Another question we got was, do you see a time when Wales could become its own independent country via a referendum?
Absolutely. Never say never.
I have a question. Is the hashtag Free Wales about that, or is it not about that?
So it depends on where you saw that hashtag.
On Plaid Cymru, so the actual site.
Plaid Ifanc Casnewydd and Plaid Ifanc as a local group. We are the younger people of Plaid Cymru, and we had a campaign called #CymruRydd or #Free Wales, which was trying to open the conversation. Basically, it's very easy to say we'll never be a free independent country because we just can't do it, or you know, it's a pipe dream. At some point in the future, we might be able to do it. Okay, so we've been a dominion since the 1700s. We've, you know, effectively the terminology is we've been dominated by England since the 1700s. We've gone up a little bit, then down a lot. You know, as a country, we look at it now that we don't think we could be independent. We don't think we could be, you know, as a country in the UK, I like to sort of use the analogy that we're 18 now. We could be. At the moment, we're still happy to live at home with our mum and dad, you know. But if dad's leaving, dad being Scotland, then I don't really want to stay with mum by myself. You know, I'd like to think, well, I'm going to go and live by myself now. Will it be difficult? Of course it's difficult. When you live by yourself for the first time, there's all these things you need to learn. But to go back to the question, absolutely, the only thing stopping Wales being independent is Wales. The only people that should have the say on that conversation is the people who live in Wales.
Do you think we should have a referendum?
I think it depends entirely on where we are after we leave the European Union as a UK. If the UK ceases to exist and Ireland reunifies and Wales is left as some giant county bolted onto England, absolutely. I think a lot of people will feel the same as me at that point. You know, I fear a power grab, effectively. We've legislated against it in Cardiff Bay. We've stopped Westminster taking powers effectively back from the Assembly as part of the European Repeal Act. You know, we've already legislated against that being possible, but that doesn't mean it still won't happen. You know, I fear that eventually there may be this Wales and England entity, and while my wife is English, I have lots of family, you know, on that side that are English. It's not about that. It's about making decisions that affect what you do and how you are. You know, it's a difficult one because lots of people have very emotive, oh, we can't do it. Well, the only reason we can't do it is because we're in a position where we've been relying on London to make significant decisions that affect us, and we're only in this position because their decisions haven't been good enough. Is it about time are we gonna, in the last couple of hundred years, has Wales really gone anywhere in the grand scheme of things? I would say we have very much gone with the flow. We haven't exceeded, we haven't excelled, we haven't gone where we could have been by now, you know, particularly after the industry decline before I was born and before you were born. You know, we've grown up in a Wales that sort of just plodded along, and I wait for the day that we can have something that says this is what we're good at, this is what Wales is good at, you know. And that's sort of, you feel it every Six Nations, and you felt it during the football last year. But suddenly it was we are a proud independent football nation, you know. Wow, if we could talk about Wales like that every single day of the year, we'd have already had the referendum and we'd be independent by now, because it's having that self-belief that you can do it.
If we were independent, though, would you want to rejoin the EU?
It's a difficult one because it goes back to the referendum and what was said during the referendum, and promises made there are becoming clearer by the day that they're not necessarily going to come to fruition. You know, promises that we'll have a deal before we leave has already been said. That's not going to happen. You know, I think Wales has another choice, another question that needs to ask about the EU in the future. But in the same way that we had a referendum in the past to join the EU, We've since had one to leave. It is okay, absolutely, to change your mind. I'm not saying, yes, we should join the EU again tomorrow. I'm not saying that we should not join the EU ever again either. Never say never. Things will change. I think, personally, I had a real tough time with the EU referendum. I was that close to voting out. My personal opinion was I voted to remain. But that's the point of politics. It's a difference of opinion. Everyone has them. In the end, I voted to remain because I felt that while there were problems, they were problems that we could fix while being in them. My father voted out. We have had lots of long debates about who was right and who was wrong. And at the end of the day, we haven't come to an agreement because it's such a polarising yes or no answer. And this is not a question that should have been asked or can be answered with yes or no.
I've not actually seen much about how Plaid Cymru would actually do this, but I've seen Leanne Wood talk about how Wales exports the most to the EU. So my question to you would probably be more of, say that we didn't leave, or say that we did leave, regardless of how that happens. We see like there's a disparity in Newport which is starting to grow. I suppose for me, on the export side, how would we best capitalise on that?
As in, what scenario?
How would we grow a business? How would you say the
as
best,
an independent nation, or
yeah, if I suppose from the Senate and in Wales. And
so there's two arguments here. So on one hand, our biggest exporters as Wales is to England and to Ireland, the nations bordering us. We do still export a lot to the mainland Europe, the mainland of Europe, absolutely. But as an independent nation, there's nothing saying we couldn't still export to England and to Ireland, which are our two neighbours that are our biggest exporters. So I'm not sure if I could fully understand your question. If I'm honest, I don't see there's not a problem if we're in or out of the EU as far as that's concerned. As an independent nation, we can still export to those countries.
If Wales had a referendum and we became independent, how would we fund ourselves?
In the same way that I fund my house when I come home every month with my pay packet. I look at what money I've got, I look at what I need to spend, and I work it out, and I find a way.
Do we have the business and development in Wales to do that?
Well, yeah, of course we do, but just like I said earlier, we only ever really talk about what Wales is good at when it's Six Nations or the football's on. We don't talk about what we are good at. So where I work, we make the world's best 4K TV camera, and it's the only place that they make it, and it's made right here in Wales. We export it all over the world, and we don't really talk about that. Raspberry Pi, the little computers, we make them, and they go all over Europe and America. We don't talk about that, in Ireland they seem to have this really proud attitude of everything that is certifiably at least 75% of the value of that product that was made and generated in Ireland. They put a big stamp on it saying, certified Irish, and that's anything from goods and services, like beef or your mobile phone provider. They will stamp and it's why don't we do that? Why don't we talk about it? Adam Price, the Assembly Minister, has a really great talk going on at the moment called Nova Cambria, the Future of Wales. It answers this exact question of Wales as a country, Wales in the future, independent or not, Wales as in the future. What is it going to do differently to get us up from where we are now to where we should be? You've got countries that are former Soviet Union countries in the east of Europe that are showing us up in school rankings and technology. We should be on a par with those countries at the very least. We're not. Why not? What are we going to do differently in the future to overcome those objections and overcome the issues we've got? And it should start off by saying, well, we are Wales, we are here, we are good at these things, and because of how far back we are, we have a real opportunity, because there's a lot of issues with our trains. Perfect example, we have trains that are currently used here and in Iran. Those are the only two places in the world that these trains are still used. That's how far back we are. There's nothing saying now we couldn't completely leapfrog the next generation and start making hydrogen powered trains that completely carbon neutral, and we then make that technology so good we export it to the world. And suddenly, just like Germany is known for its engineering, and Sweden is known for its hand cream and fish and flatback furniture, Wales should be known for hydrogen powered carbon neutral trains. Why can't we do that? The only thing stopping us is us and our heads thinking of whatever that, and it doesn't have to be something completely out of the box and completely new. we need to ask ourselves, what are we good at currently? What do we do? And let's really tell the world. If you haven't listened to Adam Price's Nova Cambria thing, he's doing it all around. He's just come back from America where he's doing the same sort of discussion. It's worth a listen.
Just to end on, apart from any reason you've already stated, why should people vote for you?
So, for me, I am a person who works hard and has always worked hard. I've got to the stage where I think it's time to do something a bit different. It's obvious that people aren't happy with the way things are currently, and that's from a national level all the way down to a local government level. I've spoke to people in my constituency that are very unhappy with the way that it's been run the last 5 years. It's amazing that this sort of money tree's popped up and all the things that have been complained about are being fixed. Yet, unfortunately for the people in power now, it's not working. People can see absolutely straight through it. If this is all you're doing and you're doing it on the run up to an election, you're doing it because you want to remind people, oh, by the way, we could have done this. But unfortunately, rather than you could have done this, it's you could have done this sooner. And that's the problem people have got. My passion is working together with other people and improving everyone's life. I'm a big believer in equality, a big believer that if anyone's got anything wrong, everyone should work together to fix it. And there's lots of issues in my constituency that don't affect me personally and don't affect the people in the street that I live in, but affect people across the road, and that's not okay. It shouldn't be as much of a postcode lottery as it is of where you live in Newport and what issues affect you. If there's issues in Newport, everyone in Newport should fix them.
If people want to get in contact with you to ask more questions in the future, how can they do that?
So I've got a Facebook group. If you search Vote Tredegar Park, I'll be the first one on there. You can also find me on newportplaid.cymru, our website. I'm on Twitter as well, at Morgan Bowler.